Hi, my name is Sagar Dubey, and this presentation is my advanced topic for the information visualization class at Syracuse University. My topic is when information visualization goes bad, the horror stories from the bar charts. Information visualization is about bridging a gap. So as you can see, often the role of visualization is interpretation of data. So you have tons and tons of numbers and characteristics that are not easy to understand. So if you have hundreds of rows and columns in a spreadsheet, you might not be able to see trends easily. And information visualization is really handy in interpreting that information for you and allowing you to quickly grasp various trends and patterns. Sometimes, though, it can go terribly wrong. It's supposed to make you feel like this, but oftentimes the result is this. Sometimes the errors are small. This graphic, I think, is self-explanatory. Sometimes the intentions are good, but as you can see, there's a lot of data points already here. So you have a graph that you can see, you have a grid layout, and you have projections. And in the middle of all this data, the user doesn't really know what to focus on, or the user is not able to grasp the point of this presentation. Occasionally, the mistakes are really minor. So in this case, if you look at the black dots, possibly if they were shaped like hexagons, the demarcation and delineation might have been easier. So if you look at this area, so if the data points are too close, maybe geometric markers might better serve your purpose. Now we go on to a quote by one of my heroes, Edward Tufte, who says, "The minimum we should hope for with any display technology is that it should do no harm." This is the Hippocrates oath version for designers. So the responsibility lies in your hands. Information visualization is a really powerful tool. And even though as part of our training we come equipped with some basic rules, for example, make sure that the data makes sense, make sure that the design is visually presentable, that the proportions are right, that the colors are accessible by people with disabilities. We are taught Gestalt and other basic design patterns, but our role is of a storyteller, and we must remember a few rules here. One of the primary ones is whenever you make an information visualization, the reader normally takes the data for granted. So the reader places implicit trust in you to be able to give them good information, and usually readers are not and should not be loaded with the task of verifying your data. Let's look at a very famous incident that's happened recently. In this case, the Panama Papers leak. So such visuals are really popular across all publications, where they show the extent of these leaks. So the size of the Panama Papers leak, as you can see here, was 2.6 terabytes compared to the other famously known leaks. However, this graphic, while accomplishing a lot of goals. So both these graphics have good color schemes, good presentation. They make the point, which is the sheer size. They've only chosen one variable to show. So they followed all design rule patterns. However, this doesn't really tell you anything except the size. So for example, what could have been more useful here is some more context around the importance of these leaks. So the file sizes might be 2.6 terabytes, but most of it might be information that is completely garbage. Most of it may be metadata that cannot be used. It could be full of emails that contain regular, mundane, not relevant information. Oftentimes, we forget that we are storytellers and that every storyteller needs an audience, and the only reason to create these graphics is for the information and the enjoyment of the user. So as we create these beautiful graphics, we must respect the user. This is an instance of a newspaper, in this case Vox Media, choosing to illustrate the story of the Panama Papers using cute graphics. Now, technically, this is an information visualization, but this is storytelling, and this is using visuals to convey a sense of what happened. However, while the entertainment value of this may be very high, this can be seen as condescending and possibly infantilizing the user where you don't respect them enough. And in no way does this graphic convey the level of seriousness that such a topic deserves. Now we move on to what are even darker sides of information visualization. This comes from one of my favorite shows on television, The West Wing, and it is the famous scene where the Geographical Society in America, or I don't remember, maybe it's the Cartographer Society, come and talk about how the Mercator projection, which is this black border line you can see here, which is the most commonly used projection across schools worldwide, is actually misleading. And the real map projection, should be the Peters projection, which you can see in green here. Why is this important? This is important because if you compare these two projections, you will see that many things are misrepresented. For example, Alaska is shown to be larger than Mexico. It's not the case. Germany is shown to be at the center of Europe. This is to be understood because the purpose of the Mercator projection, it was made by a German a map designer called his last name was Mercator, to show Germany as the center of the world, and the purpose of his projections were to make naval routes easier. However, clearly you can see a pro-Western bias in this image where non-Western countries are shown to be small. So for example, this is Greenland. Africa is actually 14 times the size of Greenland. I have put the link here on YouTube, and I really suggest you go watch it if you haven't already. There are many other types of biases that can creep into your visualization. For example, linguistic bias. In this fantastic website, the author clearly shows that the name that is the West Bank given to this very disputed territory in Israel and Palestine does not convey a lot, even though you might think that West Bank makes sense because it is to the west of the Jordan River. It is a source of much contention, and it has implications on negotiations between the Israelis and Palestinians. The next bias, which is particularly for me one of the more egregious ones, is cherry picking. So Gallup, a famous polling organization, published this graphic where they talk about opinion on abortion and how it's changed in one decade. There is a pro-life organization that chose only to highlight one graphic. As you can see here, this conveys quite a different message than this one, even though they're technically the same graphic, because a very small percentage has been chosen. I'm going to leave you with this one last graphic, and this graphic can be used as an exercise to the reader to figure out how we can go wrong. This definitely has a pro-liberal bias. Leaving you with another quote by the guru of visualization, Edward Tufte. You can see here that there are many points of attack. This skull almost looks cartoonish here, but when combined here, it connotes a mass grave. These numbers, are they accurate? Comparison of categories. Dying in a terrorist attack compared to dying due to lack of healthcare. What is the real point of such a comparison? Wouldn't similar categories be more honest and give you a more accurate representation of the data? So these questions are important to think about. I hope you've learned something here, as did I. And we have been given a very powerful tool, so let's use it well. Thank you.